Tonight on the Barbara Walters Special.
For heaven's sakes, when you received a Golden Globe Award this year, how could you forget to thank your husband?
Number one, I was really trying to be brief. Number two, my marriage wasn't nominated.
For years while you were dating, you said that you had relationships with abusive men. One man stole all your jewelry. I mean, you really knew how to pick them.
I know. There's a loser in any town.
You would have found him.
I used to find them.
I want to run through a few things that have happened to you over the last few years because it's quite amazing.
Is the show long enough?
Well, I'm just going to read it.
Is the show going to be long enough for this?
It's going to take me half the time just to read this.
You're going to have to edit some of this out.
Good evening. It's Oscar night again, and it's our 21st Academy Award Night Special. And are we happy about our guests? Here's why. We have arguably the most successful movie star in the world today, Tom Cruise. Yes, I asked him about his divorce from Nicole Kidman. Yes, I asked about Penelope Cruz. And yes, I asked him to clear up some of those other rumors you've all heard about. Then the woman who could be the first African-American to ever win the Oscar for Best Actress, the gorgeous Halle Berry. She tells us of her long, hard climb of abusive men, a father she can't forgive, a much publicized automobile accident, and how all this has shaped her. Then this year's most exciting female television star who just won a big award, the Golden Globe, the delightful Sarah Jessica Parker. She tells us, among other things, all the things she won't do on Sex and the City, and why she never mentioned her husband, Matthew Broderick, when she won that big award. So it's quite a night. Stay with us.
The Barbara Walters Special, brought to you by...
Following the awards, the after party at The View.
We're going to dish about everything at the awards. What did we win? Join us.
Live tonight on ABC.
The Oscar party doesn't end tonight. Tomorrow, Diane, Charlie, and Joel are all in L.A. with the winners, fashions, and buzz. Tonight, they're partying the night away. Tomorrow, we've got it all. It's Oscars Morning After on Good Morning America.
We'll see you in the morning.
And this is Carrie's apartment.
This is Carrie's apartment.
I recognize it all.
I think I spent
This is Sarah Jessica Parker's second home, a soundstage in Queens, New York, where they shoot the explicit, groundbreaking TV series Sex and the City. If these walls could talk.
But of course, the pièce de résistance.
The closet.
The closet.
This is her character, Carrie's closet, but it might as well be her own. After all, she gets to keep the couture fashions, and every blouse, every accessory has a memory.
I wore this top in the third season very fast. This is a blouse I wear when I'm dating the city comptroller. Oh, how sweet. These are the shoes I fell in the pond in Central Park.
The uncensored saga of four best friends trying to find their best mate has resonated with women and even men everywhere.
We are single and fabulous. Absolutely.
In the language of the cable television ratings code, Sex and the City has nudity, adult situations, adult language, and some things heretofore unseen on television.
Heidi, go!
Oh my God, she's fashion roadkill.
Hey, taxi!
The world of New York's oversexed singles scene would seem an unlikely matchup for an underprivileged girl from Cincinnati. Her parents split up when she was just over a year old with 3 older siblings. Mom remarried a truck driver and gave birth to 4 more and seemed to believe that 8 is enough. But there wasn't enough money. And though they were on and off public assistance, Sarah Jessica's mom made certain the kids were culturally rich, with lots of theater, music, and ballet lessons. At age 8, Sarah Jessica fell in love with acting when cast in the after-school special, The Little Match Girl.
Matches, matches, matches.
She was off and running.
Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow.
By her 13th birthday, the whole family had moved to New York, and Sarah Jessica was starring on Broadway as Annie.
The strawberry yogurt won't flush.
She wasn't even drinking age before she was typecast as the dorky best friend. Whether it was television or movies, no one saw her as sexy, except Steve Martin.
When can I pick these up?
Just about any time you want.
L.A. Story turned her career around.
Yes!
Suddenly, she wasn't the skinny girl next door. She was a sexy, comedic leading lady.
Yoo-hoo! Can I get a room?
For much of her 20s, she was seeing Robert Downey Jr., whose addiction to drugs finally drove away the always clean and sober Miss Parker. Then in 1991, she was introduced to a man who was very shy, very funny, and very famous, Matthew Broderick. They married in '97 in a small private ceremony, just about the time Sarah Jessica got the call for Sex and the City.
This is
She is consumed these days with two things. First, as one of 4 executive producers for the show, she has to find a satisfying ending for Carrie's storyline. That's right. 2 seasons from now, they're pulling the plug. What I really want to know, I mean, the reason that I'm here, what is going to happen next to Carrie?
I'm not sure yet. I do think she is the eternal single girl. But
maybe that's all right. I mean, maybe the eternal single girl doesn't have a negative connotation if there is contentment.
And there's that Golden Globe speech. This past January, she committed an unpardonable sin. She didn't mention her famous husband.
To the city of New York, who is indeed the 5th lady. Thank you so much. This is lovely. Thank you.
The rumor mill went into overdrive, and the quiet star, who was spending his nights on Broadway in the hottest play in town, the producers, consented to a rare interview.
I thought it was great. I was thrilled that she won. It did not occur to me that I should be thanked. It was a very brief speech. And then the next day I heard that it was very distressing that I hadn't been thanked. But I never felt that way.
The rumors were that because your wife didn't thank you, your marriage is in terrible trouble.
Right. I don't like to talk about my marriage too much because I always thought if I keep a little quiet about it, it'll stay that way. But that didn't work. So now I guess I have to say I'm happily married. But I am happily married.
What does this marriage give you?
Support, nice scented candles in the house, plenty of shampoo.
Plenty of shampoo, that's important.
I never have to buy it. Soap. I love her, and I love being married, and she gives me everything.
When you win an award, will you thank her?
Not now. I would have, but now she's on her own.
For heaven's sakes, when you received a Golden Globe Award this year, how could you forget to thank your husband?
Number one, I was really trying to be brief. You know, I've been up there before. I've always thanked him in the past. Number two, my marriage wasn't nominated. My work in a show that I'm very proud of was nominated. Ironically, the first phone call I got was from Matthew, who thought it was a really dignified speech. He thought it was lovely, and it never even occurred to him that I hadn't mentioned his name. We aren't public people. We don't make tearful, emotional speeches about our marriage. But you know, listen, my marriage speaks for itself. Come see me in 25, 30 years when I'm still married to the same man. This will be the old man who I am an old lady with.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the childhood. Your father and mother were divorced when you were 14 months old. After your mother remarried, there were 4 other kids. 8 children. What's that like with 8 children?
My house was crazy. Crazy. But it was fantastic.
Were you ever ashamed of being poor? Was it ever very
Yeah, I think constantly. There wasn't a matching towel to be found. You had to stick a toothbrush in the door handle of the bathroom to get it to open because there was no doorknob and we couldn't afford to fix it. It wasn't high on the list of priorities. But it's embarrassing.
No presents at Christmas?
Yeah, and the problem with that is not so much the day. of Christmas. It's when you go back to school and everybody talks about, you know, what did you get for Christmas and what did you get for Christmas, and you know, I think that was in a way as hard for my parents as it was for us, because I think it really made them feel ashamed. But I really feel like they did the best they could, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to have everything you need or want.
Everybody was working, but there wasn't enough for 8 children.
No, I never said we managed our money well. I just said everybody was working.
At 8 years old, you auditioned and got a part.
Yeah. NBC used to make their after-school specials out of Cincinnati, and there was an ad in the Cincinnati Enquirer that they were doing The Little Match Girl, the Hans Christian Andersen story. So I saw this ad and begged my mother to take me to the audition. So I auditioned and I got the part, and they paid me $500. And at that time, a hamburger at McDonald's was 10 cents. An ice cream cone at Baskin-Robbins was 25 cents. And I was a tiny little person. That filled me up for probably 2 to 3 days. So I had this endless surplus of cash by the end of this. So I thought, well, this is it, you know. It was this sort of marvelous epiphany, this revelation.
The family moved to New York, and when you were 12 years old, you became the 3rd Annie on Broadway, and you spent 2 years in that show.
Mm. Actually, what happened was the show had just opened on Broadway, and I went to see it. My parents got standing room for all of us. So that time, standing room was $10. So we all stood. But I remember watching this and thinking, this is magic. And I remember my stepfather saying to me, because he could see this crazy look in my eyes, and he said to me, you know, you're not Annie material, you know, you're really not. And I don't think he was trying to be discouraging. I think he thought he was being realistic, because I wasn't like those kids on stage. I had never sang before in my life, and I certainly didn't know about belting a big number out and, you know, reaching across the footlights for a big musical. But I loved that show, and I longed to be in it. So there was an open call, and I went. I found it sort of shocking that I was expected to do this 8 times a week and feel, but I loved it. I loved it.
When you wanted to do films, which was the next step, the casting directors usually said, you're okay, but you're not sexy.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I don't even know if they even said you're okay. But there comes a point in your life where you realize that there's a subtle message being sent your way, which is that you simply, is that men don't respond to you. I mean, that was pretty much the message.
Did you ever think I should fix my nose? You know, did you ever think I should transform myself?
Well, I didn't think that I should, but I was certainly told to by any number of people.
What did they say?
Between, you know, getting a nose job, I was often told I was too skinny. But see, these are things that I am not willing to change. I'm not going to change my nose. It's the nose that, you know, my parent, this is part of my legacy. This is who I am. If you don't respond to me for that reason, perhaps I don't want to work with you.
Let's talk about Sex in the City.
Okay.
Okay. We are in Carrie's apartment.
Yes.
Carrie's bedroom is behind us and so on. And Carrie, a lot of people think you are Carrie, you know, sexually adventurous, free. In real life, you are not Carrie.
No, I am not Carrie.
You're
no.
prudish?
Some might say I'm slightly prudish. I don't like to, you know, I don't use foul language, or I don't discuss intimate things with my girlfriends.
You would never discuss Matthew in your sex life?
Never.
Okay.
I think it's unladylike. It's not what I do.
You have a no nudity clause in your contract.
Always have, and it's far too late to change that clause.
So the other women will, you know, take their
if they feel
clothes.
comfortable, yes.
You will not. We will never see Carrie unrobed.
I'm too old now. It's too late. No one wants to see it now.
I don't know. They might. Don't take a vote.
Listen, I think for me, it makes me feel self-conscious. I feel embarrassed.
Does the show ever embarrass you? Does it ever go too far?
There are topics that sometimes I can't believe them and actually have to say out loud.
What do you say to people who say it's becoming soft porn?
I would say that I don't agree. I don't expect people to think that it's something that's appropriate for young children. And I'm shocked when young girls tell me that they watch the show religiously. I'm shocked. And I say, my immediate reaction is, do your parents know?
Does the show ever embarrass Matthew?
I think there are occasions when he has put his hand over his mouth in shock. I know there are. He's an old-fashioned fella. It's one of the many qualities about him that I adore.
At this point in your life, where you have a full-time job, do you still worry about money? You know, a child whose family is poor, yeah, still has that depression era
mentality.
feeling. Yeah.
You inherit that.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I think the best way to approach life for me is to constantly think that I am in a broke state. Money is sparse, that there is very little of it, and that it's about to be taken by somebody. In the middle of the night, the bag of cash that I have is going to be gone.
How much longer do you want to do the show?
We're doing 2 more seasons.
At the end of the 2 seasons, do you want Carrie to be married or to be pregnant or...
I want Carrie to be content. And I don't know what that means for her, and I really think that is her major problem right now, is that Carrie doesn't know what Carrie wants.
You want Carrie to be content. What do you want for Sarah Jessica?
I feel like I couldn't possibly ask for any more than I have. I have this crazy privileged life, and people who love me and people who I love, and I honestly, if I was bold enough, I would just ask for more of the same. But I'm not bold enough, so I'll just say I'm very content. You know, very.
The news.
Only reason I'm here, so you can say goodbye to your son.
The movie is Monsters Ball, and it can be tough to watch.
What happened?
I met your daddy.
Let's get out and talk to me. Don't.
With vicious racism, brutal violence, and graphic sex.
Make me feel good.
It also has a heartbreaking, career-altering performance by Halle Berry. Nominated tonight for Best Actress. She was named after Halle Brothers Department Store in her hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Halle was the product of a white mother and a black father, but Dad was abusive and split early on, leaving Mom to raise a stunningly beautiful young woman who was determined to prove herself to the world.
Brown-eyed brunette Halle Berry is 18 years old.
To prove herself, she became the first black Miss Teen All-American.
Halle Berry, ladies and gentlemen.
Then first runner-up Miss USA.
Don't push on me.
To prove herself, she begged director Spike Lee for the role of a crackhead in his film Jungle Fever, even though she was considered too pretty and inexperienced for the part.
You watch her. Get off from me.
$5.
Get away from me.
All right, $3.
You think I've never been to the South?
To prove herself, she beat virtually every female black superstar in Hollywood to the punch and made the TV movie introducing Dorothy Dandridge.
This isn't a tan, Earl. I'm a Negro.
The story of the first African-American ever nominated for a Best Actress Oscar.
If we're going to work together, you can't tiptoe around me. You have to say it straight out.
And the Emmy goes to Halle Berry. Introducing Dorothy Dandridge.
Nothing has come easy, but Halle is particularly adept at finding silver linings.
Thank you so much.
For example, after an ugly divorce from baseball player David Justice, she finds love and happiness with R&B star Eric Benet. After leaving the scene of a serious car crash 2 years ago, she pleads no contest, pays a fine, does community service, and then drastically changes her career choices for the better.
Line it up, baby.
If Halle Berry wins tonight, she will make history as the first African-American ever to take home an Oscar for Best Actress. A bit much? Win or lose, she no longer has to prove herself.
I tell you, it's you.
What were your dreams when you were a little girl? What did you want for yourself?
I wanted to make a lot of money just to really better the quality of life for my family, especially my mother.
Not be famous, just make a lot of money?
Yeah, no, not be famous.
Not be an actress?
Never be an actress.
Never be an actress?
No. I thought, what can I do that'll make a lot of money so that one day I can buy my mother a house? You know, a big fancy house. That's what I wanted to do for my mother. I felt very much like we were a burden to her when we were young.
Did you buy your mother the big house?
I did.
Let's talk about your childhood. Your father was black. Your mother was white. Do you remember when you first knew there was this difference?
Yeah, I think probably when I was in the 3rd grade. And it was from another kid at school who had gotten a glimpse of my mother and told me that she couldn't possibly be my mother because had I noticed that she was white and I wasn't, that maybe I was in fact adopted, that this really couldn't be my mother.
It's very interesting because even though your mother was white, she said to you, you're not half white and half black, you're black. Why did she do that?
Because she knew that in America, that is how I would be perceived, and I would be discriminated against as a black woman, and so she wanted to prepare me and not have me living with any delusions.
Halle, your father was abusive. In what ways was he abusive?
Well, he was an alcoholic, so right then and there, you know, that lends itself to not only verbal abuse, but a lot of physical abuse, and especially towards my mother. And then later on in life, he came back to live with us when I was like maybe 10 years old. And this time, he started to not only abuse my mother, but my sister, our dog, and I just wished he would go.
And he finally went?
He finally, yeah, my mother finally said enough is enough. And
did you ever reconcile with him? No.
The day that I got divorced, first time, and I was married the first time, and I so blamed it on my father, and I called him up and I just said, I'm getting a divorce and it's all your fault, and you know, it's because of you, I'm not able to, and knowing that it really wasn't true, but I needed to unleash on him and let him know what you've done to me. And
you mean I couldn't make this go, and I maybe picked the wrong guy and it's because of you? What did he do?
He said nothing, he did nothing, he offered me nothing, and I felt so empty at the end of it. But I knew I had spoken to him for the very last time of my life when I hung up that phone.
And that was the last time? Your life has not been an easy life for years while you were dating. You said that you had relationships with abusive men. One man stole all your jewelry. I mean, you really knew how to pick them.
I know. If there's a loser in any town,
you would have found him.
I used to find him. It was just my way.
One of these men hit you so hard in the ear that you lost 80% of your hearing in your left ear. Is that true? Was he famous? That means yes. I would love to know who he is, but you probably won't tell me, will you?
No.
After a series of these bad relationships, and after a very unhappy divorce when you thought everything was going to be wonderful, there was a time when you thought of suicide, Halle. Why?
Well, I think I was still using men and my mate to identify who I was. And when that was gone, then I was nothing.
How are you going to do it?
I was going to sit in the car. I went into my garage with my 2 dogs, and I had them in the car, and I was going to asphyxiate myself.
What stopped you?
It's almost like I had a flash of, you know, that good angel and that bad angel on my shoulder, and something was telling me on the right side of my brain, girl, don't do it. Girl, don't do it. Think of your mother. I couldn't do that to her. So I got out.
After several years of being single, you married again last year to R&B singer Eric Benet. What'd you do different this time?
I took the time to become his friend, get to know him, and also have him get to know me, the real me, not the image of me.
Who was the image?
I think the image is Halle Berry. She does Revlon. You know, life is fabulous for her. She jet sets, she travels, she's an actress. Life is beautiful for her. That's not really who I am. And I gave Eric time to get to know the real me. And I realized that he loved me anyway, the real me.
When you met Eric, he was a single father to a 7-year-old. Her biological mother died.
Yeah.
So you are, in every sense, this child's mother.
Yeah. I'm Mom.
I have to discuss a very sad period in your life. February of 2000, you were involved in what became a very famous automobile accident. A woman was hurt. You said you have no recollection of what happened. Has any of that recollection come back? Is it all still, as you described, a blur?
Absolutely. And that is probably the hardest part about dealing with it, even still, is because those moments are gone. You know, that memory is gone, and I've taken responsibility for a time that I can't even recall, that I can't even remember.
It must have been hard, too, that people thought maybe you were faking it. What do you mean you can't remember?
Yeah.
I should point out that you were severely hit in the head yourself, and that you were bleeding. And
yeah, and I had 22 stitches in my forehead, yeah.
How did that accident affect you as you look back?
The first few days after, I was consumed with, what must everybody be thinking? They must think I'm a terrible person. They must think I was doing something bad. It was horrifying, but it profoundly changed me. It was the real start for this evolution of being a woman who really doesn't care anymore what people think about me.
After this accident, you, who had never done a nude scene, did a nude scene in Swordfish. Yeah. Wasn't necessary.
Not at all.
Now comes Monsters Ball, where there is perhaps the most graphic and explicit sex scene, and you are certainly nude in that. Now, did this kind of freedom that you talk about enable you to do this, or are you just getting to be a different kind of actress?
It is a result of that freedom, not caring what people would think. The reason I'd really never done nudity before is because I was too worried what people would think about me.
To take off your clothes made you feel what?
Free.
You know, Halle, you have said, will I ever be seen as Halle Berry, actress, or will I always be black first and then an actress? With this Academy Award nomination, have you answered that question for yourself?
Well, I still think, honestly, we're still living in a time where I'm still Halle Berry, the black actress first. We're not there today, but I think it's coming.
Your mother is coming with you to the Academy Awards.
Yes.
What does this mean to your mother?
You know, she will be there because this moment is also hers. I think it means as much to her as it does to me.
Is there anything now you'd like to say to your father?
No.
Nothing.
No.
Do you want him to watch you that night? This night?
I suppose that would be good. That would be nice.
But not to talk to him?
No.
The husband, the child, the career. Do you have it all?
I sure feel like I do. 2 years ago, when I was going through that accident, I would have never dreamed that I'd be, you know, at the pinnacle of my career, you know? So it's just a tribute to perseverance and always knowing that tough times don't last for long. I feel really happy in my life now, and I think that's having it all, being really happy. And I'm happy now.
Thank you, Halle.
Thank you. And no tears!
Ah, you almost did! You almost did at the end.
Thank you. My lasers.
To billions of people around the world, Tom Cruise is the quintessential American male. A man of action, a bit of a rascal, flawed but not fatally, with a kind heart and a killer smile.
Ladies, where exactly are we going?
They say movies are America's greatest ambassadors to the world. If that's the case, Tom Cruise is Hollywood's Secretary of State. In his personal life, however, he has always seemed to overpay for the price of success. Like Halle Berry, he was abandoned by his father when he was young. divorced from his first wife, Mimi Rogers, at age 28, and as of 1 year ago, divorced from his second wife, Nicole Kidman. The latest breakup was international news for weeks on end. They were, it seemed, that rare, compatible Hollywood couple with 2 adopted children and a big life and love for each other. The question is, why? It's safe to say that the 3 years they spent in England shooting the failed thriller Eyes Wide Shut probably didn't help matters, but so powerful is the image of Cruise and Kidman together that it seemed at times fans simply were not going to accept that it was over. Tom is now seeing Spanish beauty Penelope Cruz.
To what do I owe this pleasure?
The pleasure of Sofia Serrano.
We met today.
The new team of Cruise and Cruz in the film Vanilla Sky looks to be the beginning of the next chapter for the biggest star in the world.
That smile is going to be the end of me.
As this is Oscar night, it's appropriate to remind everyone that Tom has been nominated 3 times. First for Born on the 4th of July.
Want to bring down this country? Love it, leave it, Tommy. You know, you could just love it or leave it. Help me!
Then for Jerry Maguire.
Help me! Help you.
And 2 years ago for Magnolia.
No! You will not take my soul! No! You will not win this game!
He has never won, but there's always the next film.
Look at me. Positive for Howard Marks.
This summer's Minority Report is a sci-fi thriller that pairs Tom for the first time with director Steven Spielberg. Those 2 names alone should be good for, about $200 million at the box office. Add to that a fascinating premise. In the future, criminals will be arrested for crimes they are about to commit. Oh, Tom, so these are your babies?
These are my toys.
Your toys.
These are my toys.
When Tom wants to get away from it all, and these days that's often, he comes here, an airplane hangar in California that holds vintage planes that he actually pilots himself. Tell me about this plane.
This plane is the P-51D, and,
His boyish good looks are exaggerated these days by a new set of braces to correct his bite. Hard to believe Tom Cruise is almost 40. I want to run through a few things that have happened to you over the last few years because it's quite amazing.
Is the show long enough?
Well, I'm just going to read it.
Is the show going to be long enough for this?
It's going to take me half the time just to read this. You're
going to have to edit some of this out.
A lot of it, but you witnessed a hit-and-run accident. You took the victim to the hospital, and when you found out that there was no insurance, you paid the medical bill. You came to the aid of a woman being mugged in London, and you chased away her attackers. Also in London, you pulled 2 young boys from a crowd, preventing them from being crushed. You helped rescue 5 people from a burning boat. This is not a film. This is real life. Do you think that you just happened to be at the right place at the right time? What is all of this saying?
I have no idea.
This is all in just the last few years.
Stuff like this happens to me all the time. When I was, I think I was about 9 years old, and we were doing this walk. You know, they started these 40-mile walks for charities and stuff. And we didn't have a lot of money, and I was walking all day. I was so thirsty, and I thought, God, if I could just, you know, what I wouldn't give to have a quarter so I could buy a soda. And I forgot, I looked, and there was this woman who walked out of this alley, came up to me, opened my hand, and put a quarter in my hand. This is wild. So I've always, you know, things like that have happened to me in my life. And for me, I try to help people any chance I get. It doesn't matter, wherever I am, any opportunity to kind of give back to the life that I have.
Your mother used to say to you, look in the mirror, and how do you feel about that guy? Do you feel good about that guy in the mirror? True?
Yeah.
Do you feel good about that guy in the mirror?
I do feel good about myself. I feel very proud of, you know, how I live my life, how I conduct my life.
Let's try, if we can, to clear up some misconceptions. Earlier this year, you were on The View, and I asked you to describe this past year, and you said bizarre. In what sense bizarre?
I don't know, Barbara, you know, it's sad when 2 people what happens, you know, the end of a marriage. And Nick and I, we have 2 children that we adore.
You know, there is the impression that you just got up one day and said the marriage is over, that you walked out with no apparent reason. You know that. And Nicole has said publicly that she was surprised, she said she was devastated, she doesn't know why you did it. So it has been a year, deliberate or not, where people have given her empathy and sympathy, and to a degree, you've come out the bad guy. You know, you talk about being a good guy and trying to do the right thing.
It's, anyone who's been in a relationship knows that's not how it goes down. And I think that it's something that is between us.
Let me ask you one question that you can say yes or no to. Nicole reportedly suffered a miscarriage shortly after you filed for divorce. Did that pregnancy have anything to do with your decision?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. It's never simple like that.
You've said, I love Nicole, I'll always love her. It will never go away. That's your statement.
Yeah.
Yes?
No, absolutely. Yes.
What is your relationship like today?
It's very good.
It is good?
Yeah, it's very good.
Friends?
Yes, most definitely.
Would you work with her again?
Yes.
You would act with her?
Sure.
Director, producer, all of the above?
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
That's nice to hear.
Yes, I would.
Nicole is up for a nomination as Best Actress.
Yes.
You want very much for her to win?
Yeah, you know, I know how hard she's worked, how dedicated she is, and how talented she is. I've made 3 films with her. 4, including the one I produced.
Do you think that you have played any role in her success?
I think that I've been there for her.
So whatever happened this past year, now it's settled and okay.
This is a personal thing, you know, a thing that we've got to work out, and it's a thing that, you know, and the more people you get in the mix, the press and everything else, things spin out of control, and it's driving you crazy, that, isn't it?
The planes are driving me crazy, and you love it. Every time one takes off, you laugh, and I blanch. And you picked this place.
You scouted it. You had your choice. You had your opportunity.
There were no planes when we scouted. I want to talk about something else that people talk about all the time with you, and that is the Church of Scientology. And it's something you talk about easily and with some pride.
Yes.
You've said it's changed your life. It affects every part of your life. Tell us what it's done for you.
Well, I've been a Scientologist, I guess, about 16 years. For me, it's something that is a very powerful and wonderful thing.
How important is Scientology in your life, in your day-to-day?
Very important.
Very important.
Yeah, it's very important. What it does, it allows you to find out for yourself who you are. No one tells you how to live your life or how not to live your life. It is a workable religious philosophy, and it is a religion.
Was Nicole a Scientologist?
Nick, you know, I think that Nick loved me, and I think that she, you know, you have to discuss this with her, but my feeling is that she became involved because she loved me, and I never forced it on her.
It had nothing to do with the divorce?
No.
Her belief or not belief or so?
No.
There's something else that I would like to clean up. You have fought and won several very important lawsuits where your sexual orientation was at issue. Why do you think you are plagued with this business that you are gay?
You know, I'm not the only one, you know, people saying those kind of things. And at a certain point, you know, when it came out, I laughed, and then it keeps going. And, you know, when you look at some of these cases, it's you know, the whole videotape thing and all that, you just go, you know what?
Someone said they had a videotape showing you with another man.
I mean, come on, that's disgusting. I've got 2 kids. And his response was, F you, I'm going to become famous, this is going to make my company, knowing it's not true, and doesn't care. And so I decided, you know, earlier on to make it not a thing to do, and I've never lost a lawsuit.
Well, I have one more part of this torture, and that is this beautiful lady, Penelope Cruz. So
what's torturous about that?
nothing except that it's personal. So, are you in love with Penelope Cruz? I told you it was going to be a little torturous. Yes, I am. No, I'm not.
It's very, yeah, of course I am. Of course
Yes?
I am. I wouldn't be spending this time with her if I wasn't.
Are you thinking of marriage?
Barbara.
You know I have to ask this.
Barbara.
Tom, people will say, why doesn't
Barbara.
she ask him if he's thinking of marriage?
You know, am I what?
Try again. Are you thinking of marriage, Tom?
Am I what?
What do I take that answer to be? The answer says, I'm not going to tell you. Let me put it another way. Are you learning Spanish?
Of course I'm learning Spanish, you know, but it's something that I remember over at Christmas, people were saying that we were getting married over Christmas, and I said, here's where you try to say, look, we're not getting married over at Christmas, Penelope and I told them, and they wouldn't believe us.
Don't get married before Academy Award night. Don't put me in.
Barbara, that's not going to happen.
Do you want to remarry? Having had 2 divorces and as painful as it is? I mean, just in general.
I am the eternal optimist. I believe in relationships. I believe in love. And I'm not going to say no to life about the opportunities and the things that arise.
You're turning 40.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Will you continue acting 10 years, 20 years?
I hope so, yeah. I'll keep doing it until they kick me out. You know, and one of the things I want to go out in the shuttle, the space shuttle or space or something like that.
Really? Are you really trying to go in space?
You know, if I got asked, I'd be there in a second.
Tom Cruise in space. Stay tuned.
Wouldn't you want to? Come on.
Would I want to?
Wouldn't you want to go and look back at the Earth? And I mean, you remember in the 60s during the Apollo missions.
I'll tell you, Tom, if you go, I'll tag along behind.
Will you really? You promise?
But I'd love to see you do it.
The final frontier.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Tom and Halle and Sarah Jessica. And one more thing, later tonight, after your local news, my pals and I at The View will be dishing all about the Oscars and those awards. We'll talk live about the winners and losers and what the stars said, what they wore. We've never done this before, so it will be unscripted, irreverent, and definitely worth staying up for. We call it After Party at The View. I'll see you then.
So this was this is a fairly important blouse. It may not seem like much, a gossamer little thing, but it has important story points.
All these things have meaning to you?
They all have meaning to me.
I'd fly both, but I love airbats. Excuse me.
This you do loop-the-loops and twirl-the-twirls. And
Twirl the twirls, loop the loops, the bing the bangs.
Pretty color, sort of a funny color, isn't it? Sort of, what is it?
Light mint green.
Blue green.
Blue, navy. It's always good.
See anything? A much publicized automobile accident and how all this has shaped her. Then this year's most exciting female television star who just won a big award, the Golden Globe, the delightful Sarah Jessica Parker. She tells us, among other things, all the things she won't do on Sex and the City, and why she never mentioned her husband, Matthew Broderick, when she won that big award. So it's quite a night. Stay with us.
The Barbara Walters Special, brought to you by...
Following the awards, the after party at The View.
We're going to dish about everything at the awards. What are we wearing? Join us.
Live tonight on ABC.
The Oscar party doesn't end tonight. Tomorrow, Diane, Charlie, and Joel are all in L.A. with the winners, fashions, and buzz. Tonight, they're partying the night away. Tomorrow, we've got it all. It's Oscars Morning After on Good Morning America.
We'll see you in the morning.
And this is Carrie's apartment.
This is Carrie's apartment.
I recognize it all.
I think
This is Sarah Jessica Parker's second home, a soundstage in Queens, New York, where they shoot the explicit, groundbreaking TV series Sex and the City. If these walls could talk.
But of course, the pièce de résistance.
The closet.
The closet.
This is her character, Carrie's closet, but it might as well be her own. After all, she gets to keep the couture fashions, and every blouse, every accessory has a memory.
I wore this top in the 3rd season very fast. This is a blouse I wear when I'm dating the city comptroller. Oh, how sweet. These are the shoes.
The strawberry yogurt won't flush.
She wasn't even drinking age before she was typecast as the dorky best friend. Whether it was television or movies, no one saw her as sexy, except Steve Martin.
When can I pick these up?
Just about any time you want.
L.A. Story turned her career around.
Yes!
Suddenly, she wasn't the skinny girl next door. She was a sexy, comedic leading lady.
Yoo-hoo! Can I get a room?
For much of her 20s, she was seeing Robert Downey Jr., whose addiction to drugs finally drove away the always clean and sober Miss Parker. Then in 1991, she was introduced to a man who was very shy, very funny, and very famous, Matthew Broderick. They married in '97 in a small private ceremony, just about the time Sarah Jessica got the call for Sex and the City.
This is
She is consumed these days with 2 things. First, as one of 4 executive producers for the show, she has to find a satisfying ending for Carrie's storyline. And that's right, 2 seasons from now, they're pulling the plug. What I really want to know, I mean, the reason that I'm here, what is going to happen next to Carrie?
I'm not sure yet. I do think she is the eternal single girl. But
maybe that's all right. I mean, maybe the eternal single girl doesn't have a negative connotation if there is contentment.
And there's that Golden Globe speech. This past January, she committed an unpardonable sin.
I fell in the pond in Central Park.
The uncensored saga of 4 best friends trying to find their best mate has resonated with women and even men everywhere.
We are single and fabulous. Absolutely.
In the language of the cable television ratings code, Sex and the City has nudity, adult situations, adult language, and some things heretofore unseen on television.
Heidi, go!
Oh my God, she's fashion roadkill.
Hey, taxi!
The world of New York's oversexed singles scene would seem an unlikely matchup for an underprivileged girl from Cincinnati. Her parents split up when she was just over a year old with 3 older siblings. Mom remarried a truck driver and gave birth to 4 more and seemed to believe that 8 is enough. But there wasn't enough money. And though they were on and off public assistance, Sarah Jessica's mom made certain the kids were culturally rich, with lots of theater, music, and ballet lessons. At age 8, Sarah Jessica fell in love with acting when cast in the after-school special, The Little Match Girl.
Matches, matches, matches.
She was off and running.
Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow.
By her 13th birthday, the whole family had moved to New York, and Sarah Jessica was starring on Broadway as Annie.
Tonight on the Barbara Walters Special.
For heaven's sakes, when you received a Golden Globe Award this year, how could you forget to thank your husband?
Number 1, I was really trying to be brief. Number 2, my marriage wasn't nominated.
For years while you were dating, you said that you had relationships with abusive men. One man stole all your jewelry. I mean, you really knew how to pick them.
I know. There's a loser in any town.
You would have found him.
I used to find them.
I want to run through a few things that have happened to you over the last few years because it's quite amazing.
Is the show long enough?
Well, I'm just going to read it. It's going to take me half the time just to read this.
You're going to have to edit some of this out.
Good evening. It's Oscar night again, and it's our 21st Academy Award Night Special. And are we happy about our guests? Here's why. We have arguably the most successful movie star in the world today, Tom Cruise. Yes, I asked him about his divorce from Nicole Kidman. Yes, I asked about Penelope Cruz. And yes, I asked him to clear up some of those other rumors you've all heard about. Then the woman who could be the first African-American to ever win the Oscar for Best Actress, the gorgeous Halle Berry. She tells us of her long, hard climb, of abusive men, a father she can't forgive. She didn't mention her famous husband.
To the city of New York, who is indeed the fifth lady. Thank you so much. This is lovely. Thank you.
The rumor mill went into overdrive, and the quiet star, who was spending his nights on Broadway in the hottest play in town, The Producers, consented to a rare interview.
I thought it was great. I was thrilled that she won. It did not occur to me that I should be thanked. It was a very brief speech, and then the next day I heard that it was very distressing that I hadn't been thanked, but I never felt that way.
The rumors were that because your wife didn't thank you, your marriage is in terrible trouble.
Right. I don't like to talk about my marriage too much because I always thought if I keep a little quiet about it, it'll stay that way. But that didn't work. So now I guess I have to say I'm happily married, but I am happily married.
What does this marriage give you?
Support, nice scented candles in the house, plenty of shampoo.
Plenty of shampoo, that's important.
I never have to buy it. Soap. I love her, and I love being married, and she gives me everything.
When you win an award, will you thank her?
Not now. I would have, but now she's on her own.
For heaven's sakes, when you received a Golden Globe Award this year, how could you forget to thank your husband?
Number one, I was really trying to be brief. You know, I've been up there before. I've always thanked him in the past. Number two, my marriage